It might be a safe and prosperous place. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Item number 4, Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific factual information. Claims against the city, council members, or employees, as well as individual personnel appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. If necessary, the city council may convene into executive session under Chapter 551 or the Texas Government Code regarding any items on this agenda. The public forum is now open. If there's anyone who wishes to address the council, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is John Fuston, F-U-S-T-O-N. I live at 4010 Miranda Drive with my wife Barbara here in Morningside. I want to talk about item 15, I believe it is. All I need is 3 hands here. If I can't get it, I'm going to stay home. Thank you, though. All right. I want to talk to you about the downtown, the sidewalks, and so forth. I'm tickled pink the downtown is growing. I think it's a fascinating place and going to be more fascinating in the future. But I've got a friend that goes down. He goes down a little bit more than I do. And, but I've got a friend. He's a little older than I am, too. He's a retired engineer with TI. He was in the Army as a major with a tank company in Europe. So, I mean, he's been around. He knows what he's doing and all. But he's like I am. He can't get around. And he was downtown, was leaving, going to the parking lot to get into his car. And he came to a place where they were serving food on the sidewalk. And I think that's fascinating. I like that. And as he got there, rather than going through the crowd, because the tables, he said, were occupied, he turned and to step off the curb. The only thing is, he missed that curb right. And he missed it, and he got 1 foot down, and it catapulted him out, and he went past the car, and he landed in the street. I said, my God, there wasn't any cars coming. I hope, or I wouldn't be talking to you. He said, no, there wasn't any, and they helped me get up and get and get on my way. I said, okay, he did one thing wrong. There's a sidewalk there. That means it's at the side of the road, and it's where you walk. And you decided, he said, well, they were all crowded and they were having a good time, and rather than having to sort of push my way through, I thought I'd go around them. So I understand, I talked with Mr. Mack, and I believe item number 15 is going to be a proposal to how to fix that sidewalk so that doesn't happen again. And again, like I say, I'm just tickled pink with the downtown. The parking is is good and getting better. Good places to eat, that's good. And one more thing, we need some restrooms downtown. It's pretty hard to go down there and spend half a day or the evening without enough restrooms. So I just wanted to bring that up and say I hope that it's successful with number 15, how it's going to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Okay, the citizens' forum is now closed. Consent agenda. Items of the consent agenda are approved by a single action of council, with such approval applicable to all items appearing on the consent agenda. A council member may request any item to be removed from the consent agenda and considered as a separate item. Does any member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve all items of the consent agenda? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Regular agenda?
Mayor Hughes, I would like to make a motion to move agenda item number 9 ahead of 8, so it follows after 7.
We'll move item number 9 in front of 8, so it falls up to 7.
Yes.
We need a second
second.
and a vote? Or second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself from items 7 and 9.
Council member would like to recuse himself from items 7 and 9.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The regular agenda, discuss and act on a resolution approving an economic development agreement and residential tax abatement agreement with Cultivate Communities LLC for the properties located at 1 LCAT 17745, 1221 Northwest 15th Street, Lot 12, Block 233, 2 LCAT 18376, 1351 Northeast 12th Street, Lot 12, Block 269, 3 LCAT 13870, 133 Northeast 14th Street, Lot 9, Block 33A, number 4, LCAT 13832, 116 Northeast 10th Street, Lot 9, Block 32B, and number 5, LCAT 13830, 1025 East Houston Street, Lot 7, Block 32B, pursuant to the 5 and 5 Housing Infill Development Program. Staff, do you have a presentation, please?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I'm very pleased to be bringing you again this month 2 additional 5 and 5 infill housing program agreements. We continue to be very busy working this program within our community, and it certainly is following in with the goals of prioritizing this activity within the community. The item before you is for the construction of 5 new single-family homes intended to be owner-occupied, and they are part of the Cultivate Community Initiative, providing home ownership opportunity along with various training and education that goes along with the responsibility for the owners that will become the future owners of these homes. The plans before you are prototypical of what will be constructed. They're not all together, bunched together. They're distributed somewhat throughout the community based upon the fact that these are city trustee parcels that did not get purchased as a result of our past tax foreclosure sale process. More or less the elevations you see here, the site plan is typical from, basically all of this is very typical from the very first 5 and 5 program that was approved by the city for Mr. Mark McKinney. In fact, the similar plans have been acquired by Cultivate Community. So with this we are recommending approval of this, and I think that the applicant is here to speak a little bit more to their program and what they plan to do here as a new entity in Paris. Mr. Dave Osborne is here.
Good evening, members of the council and city administration. My name's Dave Osborne. Been a resident here for 27 years, I think, and I'm involved with Cultivate Community, which is a very new, about 1 year old nonprofit. We have 8 different initiatives that we're working on. My purview is facilities and housing development, and trying real hard to learn the process on how all this works. But anyway, our proposal is, and we have funding, is that we're going to identify first-time homeowners, put them through some financial literacy training, how to be a homeowner training. We will mentor them for the first few years that they're in these houses. Their agreement with us will be that they can't flip the houses for a period of years, and try to get some people on the way to creating a little wealth within the families that have not had that in the past. And it's a very ambitious proposal that we're undertaking here, but we've got some people and processes in place, and we're really ready to get started. And of course, we need the property to do that with. And so both of these items, 7 and 8 now, have to do with getting us that property so we can get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there any discussion? None, I'll hear a motion.
I make a motion to approve item number 7 is written for the 5-on-5 program.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 9, discuss and act on a resolution approving the resale of 3 properties previously bidded off to the City of Paris trustee to cultivate community pursuant to the 5-and-5 Instell Development Program. Staff, do you have a presentation, please, Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Now that we have formally adopted the agreement to enter into, one of the procedural requirements is that comes first. Second comes the transference of the properties that are currently city trustee, and that would be under the interlocal agreement that has been approved by all 4 of the taxing entities following our initial adoption of the 5-and-5 program. I just wanted to speak to, I think the ordering was a little bit in question, but normally the items need to be posted 30 days in advance, and I'm sure that's why they were grouped together on the agenda, but certainly the moving of the items around don't affect that in the least. So this is for the same Cultivate, and staff would recommend that we approve the assignment of the tax foreclosed parcels to that organization.
Is there any discussion? Will I hear a motion?
I move that we approve a resolution consenting to the private resale of 5 tax foreclosed properties to Cultivate Community as proposed.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
If we could have a motion to admit Mr. Savage back in the meeting.
Make a motion.
Entertain a motion to bring Mr. Savage back to the city council meeting, please.
I think you have a motion in a second.
Second.
You have a second here.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Bring Mr. Savage back. Item number 8, discuss and act on a resolution approving the economic development agreement and residential tax abatement agreement with P-Town Property Holding for the following properties. Number 1, LCAD 18257, 500 block of Northeast 29th Street, Lot 20, Block 258A, and 2, LCAD 18256, 410 Northeast 20th Street, Lot 2A, Block 258A, pursuant to the 5-and-5 Housing Infill Development Program. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Our second 5 in 5 program this evening is for P-Town Properties. Mr. Tim Reisinger is here this evening as the developer for this project. As council is aware, we've gone through rezoning of the subject property, which is shown in this location. It's these 2 parcels. We are in the process of approving plats for this. We've not received the plats yet, nor the engineering. We were also in process of approving, Board of Adjustments approved a variance, setting those plats up for submission. At this point in time, it will be a replat and reorganization of the site. The product that is proposed to be constructed looks like this, similar, but not necessarily the exact same. The project now contains a series of 2 duplexes and 3 triplexes occupying those 2 parcels that are going to be reorganized into a replat. It's a high-quality product. We're very pleased that we're able to obtain additional rooftops as a part of this program, and staff is recommending approval. This does not involve the assignment of tax foreclosed city trustee parcels. This is all acquired privately. It's within the eligibility area, being directly across the street from the boundary as previously amended into our policy. So again, staff is recommending approval of this, and Mr. Reisinger is here this evening to speak to the project.
Thank you, Mayor and the City Council. I apologize. We're in the middle of getting our plans finished up, and so that is not really, it's close, but not really. It's what I wanted to explain is these are going to be real nice brick dwellings. The whole things are going to be, we're going to brick the, we're going to go with the color of the neighborhood, not to make them stand out, make them flow, without getting too far off or into the parking at all. I did want to bring that up because we do have rear parking for them on most, which the reason I want to bring that up is going to be very appealing from the outside. So for the majority of all of them, you're going to just be looking at the front of them with beautiful trees, shrubbery, you know, and there's only one unit that they won't have that, but for the most part, we're trying to make them as appealing as possible, and we're upgrade them from your typical, or not typical. There's some that's pretty vanilla around town, and this location that we have here is a high visibility location, and we want to make sure that everybody's pleased with what they're looking at. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there any discussion? I will hear a motion.
Wait, I got a couple of questions, if you don't mind. On the agenda, the printed agenda here, it says 29th, and I just want to clarify that both of those parcels are on 20th Street. In our memos, it says 20th. Both of them are on 20th, 500th block and 410 Northeast 20th. But in the packet here, it's saying 29th and then 20th. Is that what all y'all's packet says? I mean, agenda? So I just want to clarify that that's 20th Street.
Yeah, the parcel is here. It's bounded by 20th on the west, East Cherry to the south, and 21st to the east. So if there's something different in the memo, it's my apologies. It would have been a
It's on the
typo.
agenda here.
It's probably a typo.
Okay, I
on
just
my
wanted
part.
to clarify that because that's what we'll be making a motion on. And then the other thing is, the boundary of the 5 and 5, is it 20th Street?
Correct.
My question is, this is not outside the boundary. You said something about being just outside of the boundary, across the street from the boundary or something?
Correct. The boundary is 20th Street. We amended the policy to say that if it's immediately across the street or catty corner from the boundary, that it was still considered to be eligible within the eligibility area.
Okay.
And we made that amendment, I want to say,
It was in July of last year.
July,
Yeah, I
almost a
remember
year
making an
ago.
amendment. I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned that, so, we're not going too far outside of the boundaries. But, yeah, and I was here at the was it the P and Z meeting? that was here, whatever, yeah, and Mr. Reisinger presented. I'm very much in favor, and then all the changes that he made to make things safer for the people who will be renting from him to come in and out of 20 of them, and that's a, you know, an arterial road, so I like the project myself.
Yeah, that was actually Board of Adjustment you were in attendance
Board of
for.
Adjustments, yes.
Yes.
Is there any further discussion?
Resolution is be changed to 20 also.
If not, I hear a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item number 10, discuss and act on a resolution releasing a lien against 245 Northeast Second Street, receive payment of $3,070.15 principal, waiving interest applied to the August 2nd, 2006 structure lien, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Back in June 2006, the city demolished a dangerous structure at 245 Northeast Second Street. At the time, the principal amount was $3,070.15. We've since that time, interest has accrued to the amount of a little over almost $12,000. We've not had any other nuisance violations, no mowing violations and so forth since that time. Mr. Jeff Faber inherited the property from his uncle who passed away a couple of years ago. They are now looking to sell the property. The property is worth, I think, what I have it here, a little over $4,000. So the total interest and principal greatly exceeds the value of the property. And so while principal is under the value of the property, their request here is that they be allowed to pay the principal, but have the interest waived so that they can sell the property to another person. They do have a buyer. My understanding is the closing date is this week, and so, but it's kind of contingent upon interest being waived so that it's more financially feasible to buy the property. They also want to sell the property to the north and south of it as well. I think there's some development planning for the whole area there. So with this, Mr. Faber has turned into us a check for $3,070.15. And we've held on to that, this pending council approval, if you like to. I've given you some notes here about my process for looking at nuisance liens. City Council is the only authorized entity to look at structured liens. I'm tasked with nuisance liens, so I've given you some thoughts about how I handle nuisance liens. But my analysis here is summarizing it, given the value of principal plus interest greatly exceeds the value of the property, it is unlikely to sell unless we waive interest. So having principal paid is a plus, and so it avoids it eventually becoming nuisance, taxes eventually coming high, and then foreclosing on it. So, but they have paid taxes, they've kept with those things, which is great. But I do think it is a worthy request to approve. So I'd recommend that we pass a resolution to waive the interest, release the lien, but receive the payment of $3,070.15 for principal. I'll take any questions you have.
Is there any discussion? I hear a motion.
I make the motion that we approve the resolution for release of the lien against 245 Northeast Second Street and receive payment of $3,070.15 principal while waiving the interest applied to the August 2nd, 2006 structural lien.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item number 11, receive presentation from New Gen Strategies regarding the 2023 water and wastewater cost of service rate study. Discuss and act on an ordinance amending Appendix A, Section A10.004B, sewer rates for consumers using city water. All of the code ordinances of the city rate consultant. Staff, you have a presentation, please.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, the city currently has water contracts with 4 local industries. And one of the requirements of those contracts is that we have an independent consultant do a cost of service study each year. That cost of service study determines what the rates are for those 4 contract customers. But as a byproduct, it also determines what the rates should be for everybody else, residential, commercial, and other industrial customers. We have with us tonight Chris Eckroot from New Gen Strategies, who did the cost of service study, and he has a presentation to give you on that.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council. Chris Eckert with NewGen Strategies and Solutions. Pleasure to be with you again this evening. I will try and keep my remarks brief, given your agenda, but do want to give you some highlights from this year's water and wastewater cost of service study. As Gene mentioned, this study is required by contract with your 4 contract customers. The adjustments that we calculate for those contract customers are automatic. They automatically go into effect, so we're not looking for action on those contractual water rates this evening. We are going to be talking about some industrial sewer rates tonight, however. As a reminder, when we are looking at rates, there are 2 different time frames we're looking at. Your contracts with your industrial customers look backwards. We look at actual historical expenses. For your retail customers, your residential commercial customers, we look forward. We look at the current budget. So there's a little bit of a timing difference as we look at these figures. Again, not a problem with that. It's just how the contracts are written, how we administer those contracts, how we administer rates for your retail customers. Do want to remind you that in your current ordinance right now, prior councils have set sewer rates on a going forward basis. This is all associated with your sewer treatment plant project. And so there have been some increases in sewer rates. You see what those look like for the current fiscal year there. October 22, there was an increase. January 23, there was an increase. April 2023, there was an increase. All this was needed to phase into rates for your customers to help pay for that wastewater treatment plant project. There are more of these increases coming. We'll talk about those here in just a minute. But again, all of that is already in your ordinance. Prior councils have already taken action on those sewer rate increases going forward. Also, we'll remind you, you have what we refer to as a rate maintenance policy. This was adopted by council back in 2010. The goal of this policy is to set some benchmarks, set some metrics as we look at rates to make sure that rates are sufficient, mainly so we can ensure that we are maintaining financial stability of our utility, but also that we're able to pay our debt. This is a very important policy. It's important that we abide by this policy. As you go to the debt markets, and Mark's going to come up here momentarily and talk about some debt matters, but as you go to the debt markets, you receive a rating on that debt. Policies like this can help support that debt rating. It can lead to a better debt rating. There is an inverse relationship between the debt rating and the interest rate you pay. So policies like this can help reduce your long-term borrowing cost by keeping a better debt rating, keeping a lower borrowing cost. So I bring this up every year, but it's very, very important that we maintain and abide by this policy. This is what the rating agencies are looking at when they're looking at the financial condition of the utility. So with that, some very brief findings from the study this year. The water utility, what we refer to as the revenue requirement, the amount of money we need to generate in rates, has actually gone down slightly year over year for the water utility. That's a good thing. You're maintaining good cost control on the water utility. On the wastewater utility, the revenue requirement has gone up. That was to be expected. It is all associated with debt with the wastewater treatment plant. So again, no surprises in the study this year. You're doing a good job of cost containment where you can, but we do have the wastewater treatment plant project that we're having to pay for. As we look at that rate maintenance policy, we are in compliance with that policy. We are in good shape. So ultimately, what I'm here tonight to tell you, we're not recommending any changes to water rates. And other than the already programmed wastewater rate increases, we're not recommending any change to that. Stay with your ordinance, stay with your program. Things are working. We will talk about some industrial wastewater here in just a second. So again, retail water rates are fine. No need to change those. No need to change the wastewater rate ordinance at this time. Keep those programmed rate increases in place. Continue to follow that wastewater rate ordinance as you go forward. So what does that wastewater rate ordinance look like? Here you see what the rates look like. The next increase will come in October 23. There will be another phased rate increase going in April of 24. Right now, there's programmed in a pause in fiscal year 24-25. So you see no increase there in October 24 or April 25. Hopefully, we can maintain that. I know we're still going through elements of the wastewater treatment plant project, But right now, there's programmed in a pause. We will come back next year. We'll look at this again next year, see if we can continue to hold to that. But then beyond that, there is another increase there in October 2025 and April 2026 as well. What does that mean to customers? Coming into October of 2023, 5,000 gallons of wastewater, that will increase $5.23 effective October 23. April 24, it goes up again, goes up $5.63. Then there's that pause, which hopefully we'll be able to maintain. Then we have more increases there in October 2025 and April 2026. So again, that is the residential side. Same similar increases for the commercial side. These are the commercial rates. But what does this mean for a commercial customer? You see what those bills look like at 5,000 gallons and 10,000 gallons. Again, you've got that slight pause in there, but just as we're going up on residents, we're also going up on commercial businesses as well. All of this is associated with the wastewater treatment plant project. So what can you expect for the remainder of this fiscal year? June 2023, no increase. We're not making a change until October 2023, beginning of next fiscal year. That is the already programmed in wastewater rate change there. Same thing on the commercial side, no change in June 23. You see the change there, October 23. Now, I show you this chart every year, and I'm fairly certain I say the same thing every year. Every council I'm in front of wants to see how do we look compared to our neighbors. But this is not an apples-to-apples comparison. Every community is different. Here in the city of Paris, you are extremely competitive on the water side. Your water rates are very competitive. If we just looked at water, you would be toward the lower end of this list. But we have our wastewater treatment plant project. That is a unique issue for this community. That is placing demands on your wastewater rates. And so you see what that looks like on the wastewater side. You are more heavily weighted to the sewer side. But this project is very important. It's what you have to have in order to meet regulatory requirements and provide centralized sewer service going forward. Again, this is also a snapshot as of today. If we look at this in October, there are other communities going through this very same exercise right now, looking at rates. This would look different in October. It might look different next January as well. So just keep that in mind. So I know I've mentioned several times industrial sewer surcharge. I want to talk to you very briefly this year about your industrial sewer surcharge. When you think about wastewater, there's basically two components that drive cost on wastewater. One is the overall flow of wastewater. The other element is the quality of the wastewater, meaning what all is in the wastewater. Generally, your industrial customers produce a stronger strength sewer waste stream. It's not domestic. It's a stronger sewer stream. It's different than what comes from houses or your mom and pop businesses. The way we handle that is we have an industrial strength surcharge, what we call a sewer surcharge. We charge those customers that have a stronger waste stream. They pay more because they cause the city to incur more cost. So as we've been going through this wastewater treatment plant project, as we've been looking at these elements, these constituents within the waste stream, it's our opinion that this sewer surcharge needs to go up as well. Just as your residents and commercial customers are paying more for sewage, we have to make sure that we pass along those cost increases to your industrial customers. And so you see on this chart here, that current column, this is the current charge that for these different elements, BOD, that's biochemical oxygen demand, TSS, total suspended solids, and then ammonia, NH3 there at the bottom. So these are charged to industrial customers based on their individual waste stream characteristic. The current column is where you're at right now. You see the proposed column and then the variance. You see, this is a fairly significant change. This is a big bump in that industrial surcharge. What does this mean for your customers? What we did is we went in and we looked at the annual revenue from this charge. Right now, the annual revenue from this charge is under $28,000. We're not talking about big dollars overall in terms of revenue generation. But that's the current column. The proposed column is what we're recommending you adopt tonight and what you act on. That would take the total revenue stream from this element to just under $50,000. That's an increase of about $22,000. The bulk of that falls on Campbell Soup. But when you think about their waste stream, what's in that waste stream? It's a stronger waste stream for them. However, I'll also tell you that while their industrial surcharge is going up, when you look at our report on the water rates this year, their water charges actually came down. When you add up how their water charges came down, how this would go up, it's a net wash to them. It's basically a zero impact. So we've come down a little bit on water. We're going up on wastewater, specific to the surcharge, which does impact Campbell's. So in our opinion, this is the year to do this because it does not have a monetary impact on Campbell's when you take into account both sides of the utility bill. So you do have in front of you tonight an ordinance to make this change to the industrial surcharge. All right? So with that, happy to answer any questions you may have relative to the study this year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion?
On the, can you go back to that?
Yes.
Commercial surcharge on the BODs and stuff, the proposed?
Yes, sir.
So that's a total figure, that's not a thousands or anything, that's
So yeah,
total?
this is the total annual bill. Here, this is the unit rate. This is the constituent rate. Basically, this is charged, I believe, in it's per pound, rate per pound above the normal amount. So this is the unit rate per pound that you're seeing here.
Okay.
But again, this is the total annual charge for that industrial customer.
Any pushback, Grayson, from Campbell's or anybody, or we've heard anything from any of our industries? I don't know if anybody has seen this or not.
I don't know if they've seen it or not, but no, we've not had any comment so far.
Okay. Any long-term effects that this could have if we had some big users come in?
If you have large industrial wastewater users, I mean, this would definitely generate some revenue from those customers.
I'm not necessarily more about generating, more about pushing people away from the table on a.
You know, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of reasons people would come to the city of Paris. A lot of reasons industrial customers would come to the city of Paris. If you were in a situation, you were trying to incentivize a large wastewater customer to come in, you can make a deal with that customer. This is an ordinance. This would be on the books. You can always develop a contract with that customer, enter into an economic development agreement with them. However, we're also trying to be cognizant of the equity in charges between your industrial customers and your residential and commercial customers, because you're asking a lot of your residential and commercial customers right now.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
So my comment is, I know you said it would basically be a wash for Campbell Soup, but, we have a city manager, assistant city manager, a finance team working on behalf of our residents. But we really don't have that same thing working for our industry. So to me, industry needs to see this and have a voice on this before we approve things like this, because it's like we're approving it and then we would put it down their throats. But they haven't seen it, they haven't had a voice on it, they haven't let us know how this would impact them, and how the way industry goes here in Paris is how everything is going to go. So I think they need to have a voice on this, or at least see put some kind of a comment on this, see how this, we can express how it would affect them, because when this information gets out, it might not be accurate, and it might have a negative impact, but we should go to them first, or at least let them preview this stuff. And maybe I'm saying this all wrong, maybe I'm looking at it all wrong, but that's just my opinion on this.
Understand?
Do you anticipate, sir, I know you go a year at a time, but clearly you've stated that there's going to be a wash with an increase in the wastewater with a decrease in the water. I'm just curious, and I mean, how have the years in the past been? Have we seen increases for them? And I can only speak to the last 2 years, but I'm just curious. I mean, have we had any uncertainty in the industrial sector for this?
No, in fact, this is the first rate increase we've had in 3 years on this. So it doesn't go up very frequently. And, and they do cost us more, as Chris said. The money for treating that's got to come from somewhere. If it doesn't come from the person who's causing it, then it gets pushed back on residential and commercial.
Sure. And I mean, I know for me, and I'm sure many of my colleagues, we get questions all the time about, hey, trash, privatization, is that going to increase our bill for that? What about the water, the wastewater, what all is going to happen? And so that's why I try to understand, because, from the industrial standpoint, just like the colleagues, the two gentlemen have said, that's really important for our community, and we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure. But I understand what you're saying, and as long as it's a wash, at this point, I could see that. But they're a substantial user. I mean, we got to look out for them also.
And the other thing to keep in mind is, relatively speaking, that's a pocket change to Campbell City.
I know.
Right. I was just a little, the concern was, is Maureen's going out there and her board, and we had a big water user that we were pretty close with last year getting, here in Paris, pretty substantial. I'm sure we negotiated then different water terms. I hate to put ourselves in a deal where we're in the next 24 months and we got to, but as long as we understand that everything's negotiable going forward, we just need to model it that way whenever we're talking with. So that was my only concern.
Absolutely. The rates are definitely negotiable, and so if the council would like for us to notify those companies, we can do that. Obviously, our expenses are what they are, so eventually the bills will be paid either by the residents, the commercial, the industries, and so as staff, we've been looking for ways just to equalize it out across the board for all entities, make sure everyone's paying a fair amount. So this was brought to our attention, realized we hadn't raised it in 3 years, and so that's why we brought it forward tonight. So, but absolutely, if the council can either vote to approve it, vote to deny it, vote to table it till we notice those companies, we can bring back to the next council meeting, however you wish to do. So
That sounds like a plan to me.
I've got one more quick question, just for my own understanding. When you have proposed, I'm just going to use Campbell's for example. Let's just say if they go out and negotiate this down to 45 instead of 46.6, 47.87, does that, the variance of that, does that burden fall on any other sector?
So the money has to be generated from somewhere.
Right.
And so ultimately, if this is not generated from industrial customers, you've got to bring that back in, and it's got to come from your other retail customers, your residential and commercial customers. So yes, it's a pie. We have to generate the pie. If somebody gets a small slice, somebody else gets a bigger slice. Again, as you look overall dollars here, your total sewer revenue requirement, $7.8 million. We're talking about a change of $20,000 against $7.8 million. So keep that in mind. The impact here is fairly small. We're probably talking less than pennies on the overall rate, but you are correct. If it's not generated from industrial, it would fall on somebody else.
Okay.
I'm okay to move forward with the increases written. He answered my question.
I agree. I am too.
Will I hear a motion?
Make a motion to change the wastewater cost as written from New Gen Strategies.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item number 12, receive presentation from Mr. Mark McLenny and the Samco Capital Markets, the city's financial advisor, regarding refunding and restructuring the Series 2013 utility system COs to lower the total annual debt service support by the utility system to help offset the cost of future utility system improvements, and authorizing staff and outside consultants to proceed with refunding and other matters relocated thereto. Staff.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, in your agenda package, you had a brief memo talking about refunding and restructuring of one of our debt issues. Our financial advisor, Mark McCliney from Samco Capital Markets, is here, and he's got a presentation to discuss in detail about the possibilities that we have before us.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Mark McCliney, Samco Capital Markets. put at your dais a sheet that we wanted to review. One of our roles as financial advisors is always to look at your existing debt to see if we can replace it, just like refinancing a home, with lower interest rate bonds. When we sell bonds, typically there's a 10-year call, meaning we cannot take them from the investor for 10 years. We're now in 2023, so we look back at our 10-year bonds. We have two, COs 2013 and the GOs 2013. They're both supported by the utility system. The COs 2013, and you can see they're not in yellow because there's no savings in that. The interest rate on those bonds, COs, are ranging from 0.75 to 1.45. So there's nothing we can do with those. Cost effective is it would cost us a lot just to replace those. The GOs 2013 interest rates range from 4% to 5%. And so we started looking at those, and the first initial scenario was refunding them with the same maturities, just matching them up. And we'd save about $105,000 a year, plus or minus. We don't have the right to do this and take them from the investor until December 15th, 2023. So we still have time. That's why we wanted to come and present this. But as we started diving into it, we thought there may be a better use of this money. So when we sold these in 2013, we didn't have a lot of debt on the utility system. We didn't know we would have a wastewater treatment plant that was coming in 2021. If you look on that, 2021 and 2022 issues that are outstanding, they go to 2051. They were 30-year bonds. We did that because we knew it was a large project. We know we're in phase one. We have another phase coming. If we would have known that, we would have sold those in 2013 for 30 years and make the payment smaller. So as we were visiting with Gene and Grayson on this, we thought maybe we should take the opportunity to now look at stretching them out to a 30-year bond. So increasing that by 10 years. So the important thing for me was, one, it does make sense to do an even maturity to maturity savings. It was going to save us $105,000. So the refunding made sense just on that. Then we said, okay, what if we stretch it out 10 years, knowing what we didn't know at the time, that we had these bigger bond issues out there. And we said, okay, if we did that, what would the bond payments look like? So you'll see a reduction in annual payment on the far right-hand column. And then you'll see 3 columns underneath GO Refunding Bond Series 2023. If everybody follows me there, what we've done is we've taken out the bonds that are callable, and that's the column that says refunded bonds. Then we would add in the new bonds. So you pay off those old bonds on December 15th, 2023. They're gone, and you replace them with new bonds, and we stretch it out 20 years. What that does, if you look at the far right-hand column, it reduces our payments by nearly $1 million for the next 10 years. Some years greater than $1 million, some years less than $1 million, but on average about $1 million. Then you'll see after 10 years, it increases the payments because we're taking 10 years that are left and turning them into 20 years. So naturally we'd have increases on those years. But what it sets us up, if you look at the new total debt service column, which is the second column from the right, there's nothing much we can do in year one. We're at $8,417,000. But look at the next year. It drops to $7 million and then $6 million, and it stays at that level going down. Now, why is that important? We know we have the second phase down the road. So setting it up now allows you to come in with the second phase so that perhaps the stuff that Chris was talking about, New Gen and those future rate increases, which we don't know, will be able to be either less than or not as much as it would be if we didn't do this. So it seemed to make a lot of sense to at least present this to City Council to say yes, for you all to say, yes, this makes sense. Go ahead and work on that refunding to do, to extend it 10 years. But it was something that we thought it was very important to be in front of you all to make that decision. And so that's kind of generally the overview. We're not doing anything today. We cannot do anything today except get permission. We would be back here sometime later this fall with whatever direction you all send us out to do. We cannot take them from those bond investors until December 15th. So whatever we have to do has to fall in the window of 90 days in that before December 15th, up to 90 days earlier. So this is the time for start thinking about it. We don't know what the results will be until we actually sell those bonds, what those interest rates are. But regardless, we think we can lower those annual payments in a way that will be beneficial for you, your residents in the future. Now, I know Gene and Grayson, we've had a lot of conversations about this. Chris has been in a lot of these conversations. If there's something I'm skipping or missed that might be helpful.
Yeah, the one thing, obviously, this going to 20 years, additional 30 years total does add to the overall cost to the bond over the life of the bond. But given our wastewater treatment plant project, phase 1, phase 2 coming up, knowing the increase to our rates, we felt that the savings to ratepayers today warrants refunding, and even though it does add to the total cost of the life of the bond, freeing up $1 million today that can then be pushed toward the wastewater plant could have a positive impact to our rate increases that we have ahead of us. We don't know exactly what it is until we do the bonds, and we see what the phase 2 bonds look like, but this will definitely help soften some of that impact to our ratepayers by freeing up existing $1 million revenue approximately. And so instead of having to raise an additional $1 million for those projects, for that project there. So again, even though it adds the overall cost of the project to the bond, today's savings to our ratepayers is tremendous.
This is going to be would you follow it back up in 10 years after issuance of these new ones, then have that same adjustment depending on what interest rates did?
They would be callable. Now, I wouldn't want to stretch it. Again, if you go back to 2013, if we would have known what we were doing, we would have sold those as 30-year bonds, what the needs would have been 10 years later. So we would have sold those. I wouldn't come back and say, let's stretch it out another 10 years. Because now we're selling from the beginning 40-year bonds. I wouldn't want you all in that position. Hopefully those water lines will still be in operation, but they'd probably be ending their useful life. Yes, we would look at either if you have excess cash to pay them off, or if interest rates lowered again, to refinance them with the same type term, not extending it any further.
Gotcha.
We do have in 2026 and 2028, we do have a next series of bonds that will be callable at that point. So we will be in 3 years looking to call those bonds, do the same thing if interest rates are favorable at that time. So we're trying to pull out every tool we can to help impact ratepayers today in a positive way. This is one of those tools that came available after 10 years of this current bond.
I will say, just as a note, one thing that I've learned this last week is with this new management, new staff, seems like there is a more focus on preventative maintenance, which was maybe not so much there in the past. Clearly, based off of what you're presenting and what you've stated thus far, we need to be a little bit more proactive for the future. So would it be advised to look into maybe a future plan of, hey, the citizens of this community may want to look at the water plant, doing a reconstruction of the water plant in 25 years or something like that, maybe just as a timeline, and to start working towards that. Would you recommend that? Or
Councilmember, I think some of the stuff, exactly what you're talking about, is knowing what your overall infrastructure is. You're working on it. I don't know if it's been a final form, but CIP type deal. Mm-hmm. That's why we're in this wastewater. It sat there for 50 years, 75 years since it was started, and no one was thinking, okay, we need to have this replaced. I think that your staff realizes we need to be thinking, over the next couple of years, but that 10, 15, and 20 years. And I would be recommending that to all our clients. It may not be in-depth dive into bids and specs, but your engineers, either in-house or outside, should be looking at your water system and say, okay, this is in good shape for the next 10 or 15 years. And that should be done every couple of years, I would think.
Absolutely.
And I'm not an engineer. So I'm just, just my experience working with other cities, that's what they're doing. They're looking out exactly what you're talking about. And it may be every 5 years you get outside consultants, engineers to come in and say, okay, we built this, and if we look at the wastewater in 2021, in 2031, how is it operating? What do we need to do? How long will it last? Start looking at, okay, in 2050, we're going to need to replace this.
Yeah.
I think that's all makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without getting too far off the agenda, I know Mr. Harris is here, and I know they are paying careful attention to our water treatment plant
Yes.
and other infrastructure there. So again, not to get too far off topic, I mean, I know staff, 10, 15 years ago, we're sounding this for wastewater treatment plant, but unfortunately, it was not done. So, but thankfully, we have a current council who recognizes the need to do that, and we can't keep pushing it down. So, unfortunately, it is costly today, but things like this are good techniques to help reduce that cost.
The way I'm looking at that total existing debt service, you did 156 million, 211 where we're at today, and we're gonna reduce our total new debt service to 153. That's the interest rates involved in everything.
The 156 counts your 2023 year. If you follow it across that 7,132,000, the top number, if you look at the 153, since this is all new, I've excluded 2023. We wouldn't be doing this until 2024 fiscal year. So you're missing a $7 million number there.
Gotcha.
So it'd be about a $4 million increase.
It's an increase. And
4.252, you've got it over in this other
Yes,
column.
on the bottom right.
Okay.
Now, one thing, and I don't discount, when we say discount, I think it's important to think, okay, yes, that's real dollars, no question about it. In our world, we look at present value dollars because we're taking a payment that's $1 million today and putting it $1 million 20 years from now. That $1 million 20 years from now, present value means a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
And so the actual cost difference, if we're talking present value, yes, don't hear me say it's not costing you more. It is. But those dollars don't spend as much, and it's less than $500,000 in present value dollars.
Yeah.
Still money, don't get me wrong, and I don't want to be discounting. It is costing more to do this, but present value wise, it's not as onerous as it appears right there.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
So we just need guidance. Is the city council favorable with us pursuing this refunding for additional for 20 years? Is that a direction the council like for us to pursue?
I have a problem with it.
I think you gotta pursue it right now, and in 10 years, you're gonna refi it again.
Yeah.
All right, we will move in that direction.
Thank y'all.
So that was just for guidance on that one?
Yes, yeah.
It didn't say that. Okay. Item number 13, discuss and act on a revision to the FCA grant applications and procedures. Mr. Mack.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Just a little historical perspective on this item for you. What we have identified as a result of the downtown plan is we have seen continued substantial improvement and investment into our downtown. That's an exciting thing for the future of our community, in particular with regard to our historic downtown. Recognizing this, the council in the current budget year cycle authorized an increase of $10,000 in our facade grant program. This applies to both residential as well as commercial structures within our eligible local adopted historic districts. We are in the process of adding a new historic district. Right now, it's been through the HPC, it's been through the P&Z. It will come to the council at your next meeting for an expansion, and that's in the Pine Bluff Fitzhugh neighborhood. But tonight, what we are bringing before you is an outcome of a subcommittee process developed through the HPC. We organized a group of private individuals, business owners in the downtown, representatives of the Historic Preservation Commission. We did some study and better articulated what it is that we do to make investment in our downtown. And the committee came up with a recommendation that was then embraced by the Historic Preservation Commission to increase the individual grant amounts. And actually, for both residential and commercial, we will be doubling the project potential. We will do that up to the budgeted amount that we have each year. So it is a competitive pot of dollars. It is a 50% matching grant. The residential will increase from $1,000 to $2,000, which reflects a $4,000 minimum investment up to the maximum grant amount in residential, and from $2,500 to $5,000 for commercial. So we're investing and expecting to continue to induce improvements. Obviously, some of the commercial buildings go far beyond the minimum $10,000 investment for a total remodel, but this is strictly for the exterior, what you see from the street. So that amount will be increasing from a minimum of $2,500 up to $5,000, representing a $10,000 maximum 50% match for the exterior of the building. That recommendation comes to you from both staff as well as the HPC. And we researched and did not find any records going back from the program that is part of the administration of the Historic Preservation Commission. It was my recommendation that we take that and officially establish an approval by the City Council so that it is officially established in place by the elected body. And so with that, we are recommending your approval of the recommended changes this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Is there any discussion? All right, hear a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 6-0. Item number 14, discuss and act on the ordinance amending the City of Paris Code of Ordinances to amend Chapter 19, Streets, Parks, and Other Public Ways and Places by adding a new Division 9, Street Light Regulations, to Article 10.05, Streets and Sidewalks, making other findings and provisions related to the subject, providing a repealer clause, a severability clause, a savings clause, and penalty clause, and declaring an effective date. F.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. We bring before you a street lighting ordinance proposal to help increase lighting in the city of Paris. As you know, we're experiencing an influx in growth with new residential, commercial, and industrial development. And one of the goals as the city grows is to continue to update our standards to help Paris stay vibrant and modern. One opportunity for modernizing the city as it grows is to develop a standard for streetlights to be installed along new city streets where private businesses and residential development occurs. This proposed ordinance sets forth the guidelines for design and construction of street lighting on new arterials, collectors, and residential streets. There's currently an avenue for street lighting expansion in the city, but it is not a streamlined process and is based solely on individual requests to the police department. If approved by the police chief, lights can be placed on existing power poles in the requested areas. While this is a great opportunity to add illumination where it has not previously existed, a more holistic approach is needed for new development as the city grows. We've therefore developed a street lighting ordinance proposal for your consideration that, as developers propose new areas to develop along proposed routes, that they will include street lighting in the cost of the development of those routes. And I believe it will really add to the the development without just basing illumination to go on existing power poles, but have dedicated, attractive light poles, luminaires, if you will, that we can all be proud of. So we have Larry Willis from Encore here to answer any questions, and myself to answer any questions as well, if you have any.
Any questions?
So will Encore be changing out these guard lights and street lights little by little going forward?
We would keep the existing luminaires that are attached to power poles there in the foreseeable future. The city pays monthly for each of those. So something I didn't mention is, as the police chief and the police department approves those, we pay for them to put in and the monthly cost. So the residents that may be benefited by those don't pay anything. But as they phase out, as they need bulbs changed, if a tree branch hits them, Encore pays that, and it's included in the monthly cost that we already pay for. And the same will be with these new streetlights on the dedicated poles. Once they go in, per their approved plan that they will submit with their development plans, they will have the city pay for each light pole rent, if you will. It's not very expensive. It pays the power and it pays the replacement cost eventually when they are needed to be replaced. In average 10 to 15 years is what I've seen as a luminaire pole. I've seen some go longer. Seen some concrete poles in Memphis that stay up for 50 years until they're hit by a crossing truck. But it's a cost that is there for the developer. It's a minor cost, but it is there. But once the pole is up, the city pays, and then Encore replaces as needed at no additional cost.
Well, I'll tell you real quick, I'm a huge proponent of this. I love this idea. I appreciate you bringing this forward. We could do a lot with just brightening up certain dark areas, right? And I speak on this on a personal note because at one of my businesses put all these lights, we really lit it up and people notice. Keeps it safe. And hopefully that's the big thing that we get out of it, but keeps it bright, keeps people feeling welcome. So I like this idea, and I'm definitely in favor of it.
Any further questions or statements?
You brought up the existing lights. We do have an agreement with the city where.
Could you come up to the mic, sir?
Then we will change them to LED if they're not repairable.
Say that one more time,
I
sir.
was saying, you brought up about the other existing lights. If they're not repairable, like if they go out and we go out and we can't repair them, we have an agreement with y'all to go ahead and convert them to the LED lights.
Oh, nice.
The upgraded lights.
Perfect.
Another item of note that in this ordinance, all the lights going in would be LED. They wouldn't be the old sodium vapor lamps or other technologies.
So in like a subdivision area, is there a certain amount or so many feet apart or?
Yes, they're a maximum of 300 feet spacing and a minimum of 150 feet spacing in new subdivisions. And so those details can be included in their plan for our approval, but we don't want them longer than 300 feet.
If for whatever reason we had a unique situation where maybe we didn't want them on the 300 foot, we could do a variance. Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you, sir. Is there any further discussion? Are we hear a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item number 15, discuss and act on an agreement with Hayter Engineering in amount of $14,900 for professional services as related to the survey and design services for the Grand Avenue sidewalk extension, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents. Staff.
Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, as part of the tool plan several years ago, a sidewalk was recommended to be widened or bump outs for traffic calming and softening effects. When the city decided to expand the square, bump outs like this were included on all four corners to allow more space for pedestrians and to wait for in areas for them to wait to cross the street and provide a linear physical feature when parallel parking and to provide more space for residents and visitors to enjoy the square. Bump outs were recommended in other areas of downtown, but due to limitations in budgets, it was decided that the traffic paint hatching would be the best course of action to limit travel and parking until funding was available to construct physical curbing and sidewalk extensions. TxDOT has approved sidewalk bump outs in each area where the paint hatching currently exists, as traffic calming is an important way to bring speeds down and encourage more driver awareness as they navigate a busy and vibrant downtown. In the summer of 2022, the Plan for Health Audit, or conference, was also reviewed in the previously discussed and approved bump outs, and they recommended constructing them as soon as possible. As funds became available, staff recommends we construct more of these types of features around and outside of the square to help calm traffic and provide an upgraded pedestrian experience downtown. This bump out, under the subject of this agenda item, is on the corner of Grand Avenue near First Southwest, for which we are seeking approval. Is for the engineering stage is just the first of several areas where a physical sidewalk extension will benefit the downtown area. The Paris City staff approached the property owners near this location this spring and notified them of the interest in starting the bump out project on this corner. The property owners stated that they would like to participate in funding parts of these improvements as part of the sidewalk improvement program available throughout the city to those wanting to replace sidewalk in front of their properties. Currently, that program is available to any resident with sidewalk fronting that wants to be replaced or install sidewalks as a 50-50 cost share, with the city paying along with them. So some of the design features worth noting for this proposed improvement are new longitudinal drains to keep water from ponding up around the bump outs, a tree grate for added vegetation downtown, and stamped and stained concrete for the extension. So we are proposing that the city manager be authorized to sign an agreement with Hayter Engineering to survey and design this bump out in this location for an amount of $14,900. I'd love to answer any questions you might have.
All good here. Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Not, I'll hear a motion.
I'll just, real quick, I'll just note, I appreciate the note about the sidewalk, kind of widening the sidewalk in general from the citizen that spoke earlier. I think that's a great point. I know it's a little claustrophobic in that region, so I appreciate this initiative to make things safer. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item number 16, convene into executive session pursuant to section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code 1 to discuss or deliberate regarding commercial or financial information that the government body has received for the business prospect that the government body seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in or near the territory of the government body to which the government body is conducting economic development negotiations, or 2, deliberate to the offer of financial or other incentive to a business prospect described by subdivisions 1 as follows, Project Clydesdale. The time is 6:44 and the city council is convening into executive session.
Just wait here for you. Okay.
Item number 17, convene into open session and possibly take action on those matters discussed in executive session. The time is 7:05 PM and the city council is now in open session. We'll need a motion to approve the performance agreement between the PEDC and Project Clydesdale as presented in executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item number 18, consider and approve future events for city council and our city staff pursuant to resolution number 2004-081. Anything? If not, I hear a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned.
All right, everybody have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Gotcha.